Hey, Cassie Garcia here with Sew and Grow Together. Today I want to show you how to make your own DIY lotion bar using 3 ingredients, basically.
Hey and welcome. We are 3 families who come together to help each other grow in our faith, family, homesteading, and whatever else life throws our way. Join us on this journey as we sew and grow together.
Okay, so I want to show you today how to make a really simple lotion bar. So first I want to tell you what a lotion bar is. A lotion bar is lotion in the form of a bar. It looks almost like soap. You can pour it into any size mold. You can use a muffin tin. You can use soap mold. You can use anything that can hold its shape long enough for it to harden. And when you look at it, when it's sitting down, when it's in a tin, whatever you're keeping it in, it is solid. But when you rub it in your hands, the warmth of your hands melts it just enough to give you a nice lotion that you can then rub into your skin. It's very soothing, very moisturizing. There was a really simple recipe that a friend of mine shared, and of course it started me down looking at all kinds of different recipes, what kind of ingredients I could use and what are the different options and what they're good for. And I just kind of went all down that rabbit hole of all the different great things. So what I'm going to tell you is, don't overthink it. Even if you don't have the most expensive, fanciest ingredients, it's going to be better than what you can buy at the store. For one, just the satisfaction of making it yourself, and you can be so creative with different things that you can do with it, and you know exactly what went into it. What really started us looking at different things to put on our skin was when our second child was born, and he ended up having really horrible eczema, and it was just an awful battle for about a year trying to get it under control. It was on his face, and we really we're careful about what we even allow in our home as far as things that go on the skin and things like that, and anything with fragrances. So we're very cautious. And so making it myself, I can know exactly what's in it, even if it isn't the most expensive of every ingredient, because you know, anything that you're using to make this stuff, there's a broad spectrum of price ranges, and we can't always afford the most expensive, and sometimes we're just using things that we already have on hand, and that's still awesome. So don't overthink it. Is always my motto. Don't overthink it. And what I mean by that is not don't think about what you're putting in it, but don't overthink it to the point where you're just not doing it because you're afraid to try something and mess it up. The amount of thought and effort that you are putting into this and making your own in small batches is going to be so much better quality than almost anything you can buy at the store. So I encourage you, try it. I'd love to hear about your results. But for when you do try, let me go into some questions that you might have as you're getting started. Okay, lotion bars, 3 basic ingredients. You've got a wax, like beeswax. You've got a butter, not cow butter, think like shea butter or cocoa butter, and an oil. So many options there. You've got olive oil, avocado oil, coconut oil. We want 1-to-1-to-1 ratios basically of all 3 of those things. And I'm going to go into a little bit of detail about each one and some things to consider. But don't make it any more complicated than that. There are basically 3 ingredients that you're using. You're going to bring them up to heat to melt them together, and then you're going to pour them into a mold. So don't overthink it. Let's get started. The first thing I'm going to use is beeswax. I would not buy these again, just personally. Beeswax is the easiest ingredient, I think, because there's not as much thought. It's just beeswax. There are some different kinds. There's different places you can get it, but you're looking for pure beeswax. It's been refined, as in it's been brought up to temperature and any impurities have been filtered out of it. And you can get these on Amazon. You can get these from a lot of local places. We have a Mother of Food where I bought these, and there's other places you can get it. If you have your own bees, you could render your own. That would be a whole other thing, but you can buy these, and I would not buy these big hunks. I'm just telling you, these are the most solid part of what we're making today and the most difficult to melt. And when I have made salves in the past, This was the hardest thing to get to melt, and it wasn't that hard. Really, these are very simple. They do have small beads that you can purchase, and you purchase a certain amount or a bag. Each piece is very small. That allows you to have a little more flexibility with how much you're adding, and it helps them melt so much quicker. Another warning with beeswax is that it's really difficult to get off of the equipment that you're using. So a bowl or a measuring cup or a knife, if like I had to try to cut this and the knife that we used had beeswax all over both sides, you may want to designate a certain thing that is just for beeswax because it's really difficult to clean it off. It really sticks onto things and you have to bring it up to a pretty high temperature to melt it. But people eat this stuff. It's not like it's toxic if you use it with something that you're gonna later eat with. No big deal. It's not poisonous. It's fine. Because it's the most solid thing, it's what helps it hold its shape. If you go a little higher on the ratio with beeswax than the other things, it's going to be a little more solid, which is okay. You can make like a salve. I use my thumb and I just kind of peel some off if I've got a dry patch or like an elbow with some dry skin. It's really great with that, even chapped lips or anything. But it melts at a little bit higher of a temperature, so not just when you rub your hands on it a little bit. It has a little bit higher melting point. It also has a lot of really great properties for your skin. Beeswax is naturally kind of like honey. It's antibacterial, it's anti-inflammatory, it's really great for your skin and has a lot of other great properties, but it also helps draw moisture into your skin and seal it there so that even when we're adding these other things that are helping to moisturize and add minerals and vitamins that your skin needs to repair or heal or just not be dry and cracking, the beeswax is going to help seal it in. It's really great stuff and really not hard to work with, especially if you buy the smaller beads. But for my case, I'm going to weigh this because it is what it is. I'm not cutting it again. And I'm going to use my kitchen scale to do that. And then it's going to be what I base my other two ingredients on. So it will match this and it'll be 1 to 1 to 1. There's no specific number. It doesn't matter if you use grams or ounces or however you want to measure it, but I'm going to weigh it. I have grams on here. It's 32 grams. Now I'm just making one. Now this has been used a little bit, so it's a little thin, but I will be making one of these blocks. It's going to be a little bit thicker. So I'm not making like a whole bunch of them right now. I just want to show you how to make one. You can make one, see how you like it. If you want to make more, it's very simple to duplicate and make at a larger scale. Just to keep that 1 to 1 to 1 ratio and make more of it and put in more molds. You have a great Christmas gift or something that you can put it in a baggie or wrap it, or if you have it in something smaller, put it in a tin or container. You know, the shelf life is pretty long. We're going to talk about the different ingredients. When you are mixing things together, generally speaking, you're going to look at the ingredients and see what the shortest shelf life is. And that's going to be the shelf life of what you're putting together. So our oil is going to be what really determines that. Beeswax, pretty much indefinite shelf life. The next thing that we're going to add is a butter. And you can add shea butter or cocoa butter. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the benefits and the differences between the two. They're both really great. They're both solid at room temperature. They do melt much more quickly than the beeswax. They're plant-based, so shea butter, it comes from a nut, and cocoa butter comes from the cocoa plant, so it smells like chocolate. I kind of like it. It's not a real strong chocolate smell, but you can tell that it comes from the same plant as chocolate. Now, both of these things help to moisturize. They have vitamins like vitamin E that your skin need, and they both have those. Shea butter has a little bit more. So they have different scents. They smell just a little bit different. The shelf life is pretty similar. Cocoa butter lasts a little bit longer, 2 to 5 years on the shelf with proper care. Cocoa butter will clog pores a little bit more. So if you were going to make something for your face, may not be something you want to use, but I'm not. I'm just going to be using this on my hands and it's what I have. So it's what I'm using. So we've got 32 grams of beeswax and I'm going to find 32 grams of cocoa butter. So I did a pretty good guess. There was just this much left. Came in this bag. It smells delicious, honestly. So I'm going to be melting all of this together, and now what I have left is my oil. So I want to talk to you about some different kinds of oils, some things to think about when you choose what kind of oil that you're going to use. This, I saved it for last because this can really get away from you if you let it. There's a lot of options, there's a lot of things to consider, and there's a lot of things to overthink if you want to do that. What I used with this one was actually castor oil. That's why even though most of this is edible, you would not want to eat this particular lotion bar, which why would you anyway? But castor oil is not something you want to just willy-nilly consume internally. It helps relieve constipation. If you are pregnant, towards the end of your pregnancy, it can induce labor. It just makes all the cramps. It is not fun if you ingest too much of it. So I'm not suggesting you do that. This is an external use only kind of video. But castor oil has a lot of really great benefits externally on your skin. It can help draw the blood, the white blood cells to an area. It can help heal. It actually penetrates deeply into your skin more than most other oils. The downside of that is it is slow absorbing. So when I use this lotion bar, it's almost a little greasy at first, and it takes a minute for it to really soak in. So at first you feel like it might be a weird texture. So I don't know that I would give people this as a gift because it's just not the optimal feel that I would be looking for, but knowing what I know about it, I wanted to use it for myself. And I infused this castor oil with some plants that also have healing properties in them for the skin. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about infusing an oil because that is another option, and you can do it with a lot of different kinds of oils. I used castor oil as my oil in this and a little bit of coconut oil. Now, coconut oil is solid at room temperature, but it melts really quickly. But that's one of those things that people can be allergic to. The nice thing about this is you can really customize it to exactly what you want. If somebody's allergic to coconuts, don't put coconut oil in it. If you're allergic to nuts in general, you wouldn't want to use like almond oil or something like that. You can use tallow, which is just like beef fat. You can use other plant-based oils like olive oil, jojoba oil, almond oil. There's just so many options if you have good oil. Olive oil has some really great benefits too to use on your skin. And it does absorb a little easier, so that's what I'm using in today's. And I'm going to show you how I infused this oil. Nope, wrong one. That was my castor oil. This is why you label things. Castor oil. I haven't labeled this one yet because we just made it. And I'm going to show you how I did that. But this is an infusion of olive oil with comfrey and calendula flowers. And both of those are really beneficial for the skin. Plus the olive oil itself is also great for the skin. But let's talk just for a minute about oils because it can be a little confusing and concerning, and you can really go down the rabbit hole with that. So how do you know the best kind of oil to use? What you have available. If you see a video and they're like, throw it out if it's this or that or the other, like calm down. Sometimes you just have to use what you've got, and if you can later down the road afford more things or find something else, great. But there are things that help the oil maintain all the good properties. With castor oil, you want to make sure it's cold pressed, hexane free, and people are really particular about wanting to make sure they were in a glass container, but mostly what you can buy them in is plastic. It's just most of the things are plastic. The concern is that it would be leaching because it helps draw things out, that it would be leaching things out of the plastic that you don't want to then put in your body. I think we can go a little overboard on that. You can definitely move it to glass as soon as you get it, and then you wouldn't have to worry about it being in it more of a long period of time. Probably most of the castor oil, even in glass containers, were in plastic at some point. You can really get picky about it. Olive oil. A lot of what we buy in our grocery stores is not real olive oil or not 100% olive oil, even if it says that on the bottle. Unfortunately, because that's just one of those things. Olive oil is very hard and time consuming and expensive to extract. So if you're finding some for very cheap, it's probably not really olive oil or not 100% olive oil. It may have been mixed with other seed oils or different kind of cheaper oils to stretch that. And it doesn't necessarily mean that's not true, even if it says 100% olive oil in the ingredient list. Things to look for are the countries of origin, if there's a date on it as far as like processed or like a created on date. Because another thing about your oil is this is going to be your shortest shelf life. Olive oil, you're only going to want to use it for about a year. So a lot of the oils that come from other countries, they don't necessarily have the same procedures or regulations that we do on ingredient lists and labeling and things like that. So if it comes from Italy, but really it came from different countries and they bottled it in Italy and then shipped it here, I don't know, you're taking a gamble. It might be mostly olive oil. It might not be. You don't know where all this stuff comes from. The one that I use, it says it's 100%. It's extra virgin. It has a tinted amber colored bottle that helps it last longer to avoid getting sunlight in. You're wanting it to be kept at room temperature and avoid sunlight to make it last longer. These oils do go rancid after a while, and there's things that we could do in this process that could make them go bad more quickly, so we want to avoid those things. But I just used what I could find. I got it at Sam's. I don't know that it's the greatest thing. I would love to start purchasing things like that from like Azure Standard, who is just doing a lot of really amazing things. We got to listen to the founder of Azure Standard at the Food Independence Summit in Amish Country, and honestly, he wasn't a great public speaker, but he's the only one that got a standing ovation that spoke because they're just doing some incredible things with really good quality organic food and how they're providing the whole country with that. And they do their own shipping methods. It's totally different from anything. So I definitely want to try that out eventually. But for what I have right now, I have a Sam's extra virgin olive oil. Now on the back, it did say it came from Texas, USA, but then it had a list of countries of origin of the actual olive oils. So they just combine it and bottle it there in Texas. We do grow our own olives here in America in California, so you can find some like that. It's going to be, if you can find some from there, it will have gone through less of a process to get to your home. So you're more likely to end up with the real deal. But as I said, don't overthink it too much. I've heard people say if your castor oil comes in a plastic bottle, just throw it out. I'm like, don't do that. Because there's a lot of great benefits, you don't want to just throw the baby out with bathwater. So olive oil is really great for a lot of things. And then when we infuse it with these plants, it's going to give us those benefits as well. So there's a few different ways to infuse oil. But first of all, what is an infused oil and how is it different than, say, an essential oil? I'm glad you asked. An essential oil has to go through a process. They take a plant, like lavender, and they put it through a distillation process where they take a certain compound in that plant and they basically make it very, very concentrated. So you are losing a lot of other properties in that plant because you're getting one specific thing or one part of the plant, the oils, and you're not getting some of the other things that are in that plant, and you are concentrating it. And there's a definite use for that kind of stuff, but it is not the only way to get benefits from a plant. If you're trying to get the benefit of a plant, there are 3 other ways that you can use that are very common. One is to make a tea if you're going to drink it or use it for something. Just steep it in hot water. You can make a tincture that lasts a lot longer, where you soak it in alcohol like vodka. It extracts the properties from that plant, makes it shelf stable. And then we have infusions. This oil is infused because it has been soaking in these plants. The properties of the plant are going into the liquid. So even when I strain out these particles, it's going to still give me the benefits. So when you're making an infusion, you can put the plants in here, cover it with oil, and then leave it sitting on a shelf for 4 to 6 weeks. That's an option. You can put it in a really warm place, like in a windowsill where it's going to get a lot of sunlight, and shorten that time. What I did here today, because I was in a hurry and I wanted to do this more quickly, was I warmed it in low heat for a few hours. The trick is you don't want to get it too hot because that could damage the properties of the plants and the oil or make it go bad more quickly.
So let's prep our infusion here. I'm taking this rack. I actually got it with my Instant Pot, but this is going to help keep the jar up off of the burner because I don't want it getting too hot or burning the oil. That would definitely not be good. So this gives it a little bit of space, kind of makes it like almost like a double boiler. I've also seen where people use washcloths if you don't have anything like that. We're going to turn this up to medium heat. Again, we do not want to overheat the oil and make it go bad. And these are dried comfrey leaves that I harvested from my own backyard. And these calendula flowers could have been harvested from my own yard. They were not, but I do have some growing in our house too. Now before adding the oil, some people like to really crush the leaves and the flowers to start releasing those things that were dried into it. You could go so far as using like a coffee grinder or a mortar and pestle, things like that, to really break it up and start releasing. You can smell it more strongly then, and then go ahead and pour the oil over top of it until it covers all of the plant. And now we wait. You can also do this process in an Instant Pot or in a slow cooker on keep warm, very low settings. You want to make sure that no matter where you do it, that you are comfortable touching the water. It is not boiling, it's not overheating, and you can add enough water that it is in no danger of coming up over the jar or container, but that it's covering the sides enough to really warm the liquid inside.
You can use fresh herbs, and it would probably be a better idea to use this warming method if you use fresh herbs, because you're going to get some more of any of the water hopefully will be evaporating out. But if you're leaving it sit on a shelf, you're probably going to want to use dehydrated, because adding too much water to this, water and oil don't mix, you might mold, it might go rancid, it would go bad much more quickly. You do not have to infuse the oil. You could just use straight up olive oil, but this was just some things I had on hand that I know are great for skin, and I wanted to do it. All right, now that I've got my oil, I'm going to zero out my kitchen scale with the bowl on it, and I'm going to just strain a little bit until I get to 32 grams. So I'm going to leave the rest of this sitting in the oil for a little bit longer, and that is going to just make it a little stronger for the next time I want to use it. And I will, of course, be labeling this, because otherwise I'm not going to remember which one's which and what I've been doing.
And now for the easy part. We're going to turn these 3 ingredients into a lotion bar. So easy. You're going to kick me for talking so much before this. We're going to use the same double boiler system that we use to infuse the oils, and this time I'm using a glass container that I don't mind getting some beeswax in. I've used it for these kind of things before, and I'm going to take my beeswax and I'm going to start melting it first. I'm going to crank the heat up and really get it melting, and it takes a minute, especially when it's a big solid piece. You can see that my stirrer here already has hardened beeswax on it, like immediately upon pulling it out of the hot beeswax, so yeah, be prepared. Once the beeswax is pretty well melted, you can then add the cocoa butter or the shea butter, whatever you're using, and let it melt too. At this point you can add your oil. You really don't need to keep it on the heat any longer after this, just stir to mix it, and make sure you have the mold prepared before you remove it from the heat, because it will cool quickly. If you want to add any essential oils, this is the time to do it. 1 or 2 drops is plenty for this small amount of lotion. I chose to add some lavender essential oil to this. And honestly, that's all there is to it. You just pour it into a mold and wait for it to harden. I like to immediately put my container right back in the boiling water, crank up the heat, and wipe it down with a paper towel. This helps make cleanup a lot easier, especially when beeswax is involved. It's like watching paint dry, isn't it? Just kidding. It's more exciting, and this is time-lapse, so you get to see how, as it cools, it hardens and becomes less translucent. After a few hours of cooling, I'm going to remove it from the mold. Oh my goodness, super easy. Because of all the oils in this, it just pops right out. And if it does stick to anything, just put your hand underneath it and warm it and it will come right out. It really doesn't stick. But look at this pretty design. You can pour these into any kind of mold. So yeah, lovely. Have fun with it. You really can't do it wrong, right? It's pretty easy. You got this. Let's try it out though. I just put what was left in this other section and I just want to see what it feels like. I was really impressed with the feel of it. I like it better than the castor oil one because it doesn't leave my hands feeling quite as greasy and it's very moisturizing and I think it's a success. Woohoo!